Julie Bean, and I am here with Art Beads, and I am live. Yay! And I am so happy to be here, and I am back home. If you caught my show last week, I was actually visiting my mom up in Seattle, and I had terrible reception, and so it was all fuzzy. But we're back to normal. And for all of those who did join me last week and stuck with me, a big thank you. Hopefully this week goes a lot smoother. I'm going to knock on some wood there. Well, thank you for joining me on this Wednesday. I come to you every week and we do some beading together. We make a project or 3 projects or 5 projects, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm seeing some hearts already, guys, so thank you for that. Thank you for joining me. And then we are going to be doing some loom work today, and it's going to be a pretty big show because I am going to do a piece of loom work from start to finish here. So I'm going to show you what we're going to make. So here is the finished piece. This is a loom earring, so a little something different. I know I do a lot of loom bracelets, but I wanted to do something different. So here is an earring, and it's a nice statement earring, so it's really kind of nice and bold. And it's going to be a lot of fun, but we are going to make this from start to finish. I'll show you how to set up your loom. I'll show you how to do the loom work, how to take it off the loom, how to tie up your ends, how to connect the connectors to this piece. So a lot of fun here that we're going to be doing. So a couple quick things before we start. First off, I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. So if you are here on artbeads.com/live, I can see your comments, which is great. Like, hi, Robin. She's coming from Louisville. Thank you for joining us from Louisville. So that is a great thing if you are here on the Art Beads website. If you are viewing from YouTube or you are on Facebook, thank you for joining us as well. There is a link in those videos that you're watching right now, and it will take you over to artbeads.com/live so that you can interact with me and see those comments like Julie and Shelly. Hello. Oh, I must have said something because I just triggered my Alexa. But hi, Julie from, and then Shelly, first time loom user. Oh, yay. This will be fun for you then. Hi, Dee. So I am seeing all those wonderful comments. So thank you for doing that. And again, if you're on one of the other platforms, you can still comment. I just won't be able to see them live. Okay, a couple other things is you will see as we are going along, little banners pop up. If you want to, you can click on those. It will be what I am demonstrating, what I'm using, the product, and it'll take you to the product page. You won't get disconnected from the live. There's also going to be a shopping bag icon you can see. So if you ever want to see what I'm using or see the whole list of everything I'm using ahead of time before the little banners pop up, you can just click on that shopping bag and I'll have everything in there, and you can add them to your cart right then and there. So it's a really nice feature of that. There's also a little arrow button. If you want to click the arrow button, you can share what you're watching, which is fun too. Share the love of beading with some friends. And I'm seeing these comments come in. Hi, Cecilia from California, Veronica. Can I suggest a good beading loom for beginning? Yes, I can. So I am going to be using the baby jewel loom, but there's also a full-size jewel loom. I would definitely recommend these for beginners. These are great, very easy to use. That's why I'm using it here. There is a link in that shopping bag to the baby size and also the full size. So if you think you want to do bracelets and earrings, I would get the full size. If you're really just like, I want to make a ton of these earrings, the baby one is a really nice option for that. And Lisa's joining us, and Chris, you guys, thank you so much. It's good to see everyone here, and Sylvie from Quebec. So we've got people from all over the place. This is so much fun. And I am here in Los Angeles, and it is finally sunny, so I'm very happy about that. Okay, so I think that covers a lot of the basics about how to comment and share and the little hearts and the shopping bag. If you ever have any questions during this broadcast, just write them as a comment and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Sometimes they go pretty quick, so if I miss your comment, I'm sorry. You can always ask it again if I don't answer it. I'm trying to read them as I'm beading and as I'm talking. Okay, I want to start working because this is going to be a pretty intense class that we're doing here. We're doing a class on loom work right here, basically. And so I want to start on that so we can cover everything. Okay, so I'm going to flip my camera down so you can see my beading table. Here we go. All right, there's the sunshine. Hooray. All right, so what do we have here? Let's start with the tools. So your tools, you will first and foremost need a loom. So this is the jewel loom, and again, it's the baby size one. And it is really handy because it's all put together. It comes like this. There's no assembly required. So this is the one we're going to be using. Like I did say before, is I put in the shopping cart the full-size one, which is great if you want to be doing bracelets too. Oh, hi, Marie. Hi, Nancy. Oh, thank you, Nancy. You love my earrings. Thank you. I made those in the Prestige show from like 2 weeks ago, I think. So that show is archived if anyone wants to go back. All these shows are saved and archived, which is nice. And Deborah, hi from Parker, Colorado. Oh, yay. You're looking forward to today's topic. It is fun. I love loom work. Okay, so you're going to need a loom. You're going to need a needle. Now, I put in the shopping bag a loom needle. I am going to be using, though, my regular beading needle. So the reason I'm going to be doing my regular beading needle is I find when I'm using this size loom and I am making something that is this size, it's 20 millimeters across, I find it a little easier to just use my regular needle. It's long enough to put all the beads on, and I feel like I just have a little bit more control over it. So that's a personal preference. I did put loom needles in the shopping bag so you can see what they look like, but I also like to just use my regular needle. Okay, you're going to need a pair of scissors because you're going to be cutting your threads. And that's it for the actual loom part of your tools. There's not much. It's a needle and a pair of scissors and the loom. Now, because we're going to be attaching these ends, oh, my earring hook just came off. Okay, so I obviously did not close my earring hook loop enough. Well, we'll fix that. We're going to be using a jump ring and we're going to be connecting these ends. You're going to need a couple additional tools. You will need a pair of cutters, and you'll see why when we get to the actual clasp or the end part, and 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. Okay, so those are the required tools. Now I have a little pair of tweezers that I'm going to be using because it's going to help me with my tying of my knots later on. And then a couple other things, just like a quick note, you'll need a scrap piece of wire or a toothpick. We are going to be using some E6000 glue to secure our knots a little better. I have just a plastic baggie that we're going to be using and some tape. So just a couple little odds and ends that you're going to see used as the show progresses. And then, of course, you're going to need your main supplies. So I am using these 4 colors of Toho 11-0 seed beads. These are round. Now, these are a designer palette that has been specially curated so that they all go really well together. They're all color coordinated. So this is called Cornflower Dusk, and you can see how they look together. Because I find one of the hardest things to do is pick out color combinations for a loom because you want enough contrast. Contrast is super important when you're doing loom work. So I really like these designer palettes because they already have really nice contrast, usually contrasting beads. So you know that they're going to look good however you want to work them up. Oh, and then Holly is asking, would you do both earrings on the loom at the same time? Nope, you're going to do one at a time. And you're going to do that because your earring is going to be here, and then you're going to cut it off the loom, and you're going to need those longer ends to tie your knots. So if you had an earring here and an earring here, you would have a very small gap where you would cut your threads, and it would be very hard to tie knots with that. And Judy's saying she has a hard time deciding on colors. You know what? I do too. I will admit I have really started quite a few loom projects and I have stopped them because the colors were not right and they didn't have enough contrast. So this is a really good set because you can see that dark versus the light. You can see a little bit of a shine versus some more matte. So that's what you're looking for when you're picking out loom colors, especially. You want high contrast and you even want different finishes. So you want some, like that purple has a little bit more of a shine to it. And then you see it contrasts against kind of that dark navy, which is really kind of matte. So it's just one of those things where you really want to check that when you squint your eyes at it, do you see contrast? That's kind of the key. But I put not only this color palette in the shopping bag, I put a bunch of the other ones because there's a whole bunch of these and they're new to Art Beads. So this is a new thing that Art Beads has, and it's really helpful if you are doing loom projects or bead weaving or anything where you want a color palette that you know is going to work without having to do all the guesswork. So if you click on that shopping bag, you'll see a bunch of other color combos too. All right. So I then have my beads, and then for the end caps, we're going to do something kind of clever. This is a slide connector clasp, and I'm going to open it up so you can see what it is. So this is something that I use for Loom bracelets all the time. And it is a clasp for a bracelet. But what we're going to do here at the end is we are going to cut that little jump ring on both sides. And we are going to use this to still bracket our loom piece, but then we're going to hang an earring hook. So that's a really nice way of being able to have these connector ends, turn them into earring connector ends, and then save this part here for another project, because you'll have a nice little lobster clasp and extender chain left over. So that's kind of fun. You get extra bonus stuff out of that. And then Robin is asking if you use the original jewel loom, you could do both earrings on the loom. Yes, I think you could. My only recommendation is do one way up here on the original one and one way down here so that you have as much of a gap here as possible to tie your threads. So that would be a really good tip. So yeah, Robin, great observation that if you had the larger loom, which goes out to about here, you should be able to do both earrings on the loom at the same time and then just slice your threads in the middle. I love how helpful we all are. This is such a great community where we're all sharing our thoughts and advice. And I've learned so much from you guys, so I appreciate that. Like Robin, that was wonderful. Thank you. Okay, and then let's see. We're going to have a little pretty little prestige crystal dangle hanging from it. And we're just going to connect that with a little jump ring and then, of course, our little earring hook. All right, and our thread is going to be 1G, and I am using black. I did put purple in the shopping bag because I thought that would have been really pretty too. But for the video, I definitely wanted to do black so you guys could see it. White would work as well. Light blue would work. There's a lot of different colors. But black, this is what it looks like with the black. So you do see those threads. Still a little bit, but actually looks on purpose. It looks like you chose a darker color on purpose. Oh, hi, Kat. Thank you for joining. And Julie, it's good to see everyone. And it's good to see you where I'm not fading in and out and getting cut off like last week. Okay, so for this size top piece, you are going to do a loom pattern that is 11 beads across. Now, what's nice about that is it gives you a center bead, which is good. So now you can do like a chevron because you have a center bead. And so what I am going to show you that I use to make my pattern is this. This is really neat. This is some loom weaving paper. And Art Beads has this for free. These are free downloads, and they have this for round beads. You see how the shape of the bead is round? And they also have it for cylindric beads. And I put the link in the show notes here in that shopping bag. And you can go and you can follow that link and you can download this for free. And you can download as many pages as you want. There's peyote, there's brick stitch, there's loom. And I love this. It is so handy. So it has like a number line right here. And it's got really a nice space. So I took this blank paper and I printed it. And then what I did was I made myself a pattern. And I just used my kids' crayons in the colors of my beads. And then what I like to do is I knew it was going to be 11 across, so I wrote out the numbers up here. I put a little arrow where my center bead is. And I also put a little arrow where my center bead was here. So I found the exact center of where my earring was going to be. Now I started with this pattern here and I switched to this one only because of time efficiency here as we're doing this. I can do this tutorial quicker if it's a chevron pattern versus if it's something more intricate, but you can make your pattern as intricate as you want. So this was really handy and easy to do, and it's nice because you do a bunch on a single sheet. You can print out more sheets. It's all free, and it's all just there on artbeads.com, and that link is in the show information in the little shopping bag. Okay, so if you're doing loom and your loom work is 11 beads across, you are going to need 12 warp threads. So your warp threads are the threads that are anchoring it to the loom. So you're not going to pre-cut your thread. You are going to start by doing it right there off the spool. So we are going to grab our thread. Okay, so we're going to undo some of it. Okay, and we are going to tie a little knot, essentially. Get like a little loop going, but don't pull it all the way just yet. So you've got this little loop. And now you're going to go to these back pegs and you're going to slide that little loop onto your back peg, like so. Okay, now I want to make sure it's extra secure. So I am just going to tie another knot. Just like so. And I'm just going to tie another one because I want to make sure this does not fall off. Okay, so give it a good tug. And then you could tug it here too. And that's not going anywhere. Okay, so now what I can do is, this is pretty long right here, so I'm going to trim that tail just so it doesn't get caught in what I'm doing. And now we're going to start to set up our loom. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to have this right here, and you're going to pull it to the front side, like so. So you see these grooves? It's going to sit down into the groove. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to count how many grooves I put that in. So 1, 2, 3, I'm just putting my fingernail in it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it is in the 14th groove over. So I want that to be the same up here. So I'm just going to pull it really tight, and now I'm going to count over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I need to go over one more. So now it's in the 14th. So both are in the grooves that are opposite each other, but the same number. Okay, now we're going to flip it on over, and we're just going to go around that little peg and back up. And now we're going to sit it down into the very next groove over. And we're going to go down, and we're going to flip it, go behind that peg and up and into the next groove and go across. And we're going to keep doing this until we have 12 warp threads. And I'm holding this at a pretty tight tension. So I'm making sure that this is not loose. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. And this is definitely going to be a situation where you measure twice, cut once. So we're going to count our rows here when we think we've got them all. So that should be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, this should be 12, but I don't quite trust that I counted right, so I'm going to count it again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so it is right. So what I like to do, because I'm holding this at a pretty tight tension, is I'm going to wrap this around my peg a couple times, just to give me a little bit of extra grace while I try to tie a knot for this. I might even do that one more time. Okay. So now I'm going to cut it off my spool at this point, leaving a tail of about 5-6 inches. Okay, so now is where I should find my tweezers, or you can do your chain nose pliers. basically I want to hold this nice and tight, and I want to get this thread under here to tie another knot. And so sometimes it's nice and it plays nicely with me, and then sometimes like I slipped it under there, but now I just need to grab that thread and pull it through and pull. So there we have a knot. Now that we've got one knot, I feel like I can kind of relax my hand a little bit, and we're going to tie another knot. Okay, again, it sometimes helps if you want to just use your pliers as like a nice extra hand to kind of guide it. And it's just important that this is really secure, because this is what's going to hold your loom work together. And you're going to eventually just cut this off. So don't worry that you're going to have to untie these knots or anything like that. Okay, so we've got all our threads on here, and you see it's not centered. I don't mind that. You know, it was a bit of work to, you know, precisely count to where you were. I don't mind that it's not centered in terms of the exact middle of this loom. Okay, so that is good. We have our tension. You can kind of feel that's got some nice tension. That's what it looks like from the side. And so we are now ready to begin our actual loom work. So I have taken my needle, and like I said, I'm using a regular needle. I just feel like I have a little bit more control. And I've put 6 feet of thread onto here. And that seems like a lot, but it gets eaten up really quickly because you're going back and forth for each one. So this is going to be your weft thread. So these are your warp threads. This is your weft thread. Okay, so we've got the 6 feet, and you see it's doubled for a while here just to make it more manageable. And there is no knot on the end. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pour out our little beads. And this is probably way more beads than I actually needed, but you'll see how pretty the colors are. Okay, and your first row is going to be your hardest. And you might have to fiddle with it for a while. All right, so with this particular way of finishing it, your first row is hidden. So you can do it following your pattern, or you can just put whatever beads you want in there. You can just put filler beads in there. So here we go. Let's see what we want to do. Now our goal is to start about here. So you're wanting to leave those nice long threads for the end. So I've got my pattern right here. Now I don't know if everybody does this, but I start from here because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to be going right here on the right side of my loom. So I tend to start, when I read my pattern, I start from right here. So I see that I want to pick up 2 of my blue beads. I'm just looking at my sample here. Yeah, 2 of my light blue, 2 of my kind of raspberry color, 3 whites, 2 raspberries, and 2 blues. So what's nice is we see that this is a completely symmetrical design with that center bead right here. So what I do is I look at what the first half of the pattern is, and then I just duplicate it. So as long as I know I need 2 blues, 2 raspberries, and basically 1 more white before that center white, then I'll just do the reverse to get the rest of it. So let's do that together. So we need 2 light blues. So 1, 2. We need 2 of this kind of purpley color. And then I need 3 whites. Okay. And then because I know that those white beads are in the center, now I know without even looking at my pattern, I need 2 more purples followed by 2 more light blues. And that helps to really progress with your loom work if you're wanting to do it kind of quickly, is you only really have to look at half your pattern. Okay, so we got all those beads on there, and you're going to keep them on your needle. And then you're going to grab your loom, we'll see how smoothly this goes, guys. All right, so you're gonna take it and go under your threads, okay? See that nice big gap under there? You're gonna go under your threads, and you are gonna line these guys up, one between each warp thread. And I'm gonna be quiet for a minute as I try to do this, because this is really just the hardest part of the whole thing. And what you can do is you can help your threads along to kind of move them so that they're where you need them. And now we'll double check that I counted my threads right, because this should work perfectly where you have one bead between each thread. Okay. Go in there. Okay. Okay, guys, can you see that? Yes, these are size 11 beads, and they're the Toho rounds. All right, so we've got that push. Now I'm taking my finger and I'm really pushing those up. So they are really pushed up between those threads. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pull it out, keeping that tension there where I'm really pushing those beads up. I'm going to slide out all this big length of thread. And I want to have a tail of about 10 inches. So I'm still pushing them. Now I'm going to go up on top of them and I'm going to run my needle. I'm still pushing them, still pushing them. Okay. So, one slipped. Let's see if I can fix it or if I have to redo it. Okay, let's see if I can take care of that guy. I'm going to pull my needle back out. You see what happened? This one ended up on the outside. He popped out a little bit. So still pushing this. I can't have him on the outside. He has to be on the inside. So I might have to just start over. Like I said, this is the hardest part of loom work. Come on, slip down there, dude. All right, I'm gonna redo that. Because he somehow got on top. So just gonna redo those guys. So hopefully what you'll see is hopefully we'll get this on here and you will then see that it is a lot faster once that first row is done. All right. So we have 2 blues, 2 purples, 3 whites, 2 purples, and 2 blues. All right. Starting over. Okay, same process. All right, whew, we did it. Okay, and I think I could hear you guys all holding your breath for me, so thank you. Okay, so we have our first row done. Now we're gonna go to our second row. And what our second row is we're just going to be following our pattern. So the first row was done, so we just go back and we look at our pattern here. So now it's gonna be a purple, 2 blues, a pink, 2 pinks, a white, and you're just gonna follow your pattern. So this is going to be a bit of beadwork because I did not make a step out for this project. And I might make the second earring a little shorter, just so you guys can see all the techniques. But I didn't make a step out because I did not have two little looms. So I was like, well, we're gonna show this whole thing from start to finish. But I'm just gonna follow my pattern. But this would be a really good time if you guys have any loom questions. I can look at them as I'm doing this beadwork. And I could hopefully answer them for you. Because this is the same technique, whether you are doing a earring, you're doing a bracelet, whatever you may be doing, this is how you do it. You put all your beads onto your needle, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go under again. But what's nice this next time that we're going under is you can see that our threads are separated out better for us because we have that anchor row in place. And you can see how that is. And now it should be easier to do. And then we're going to go back on top of this row. So you go under, and then you go back on top. And I'm trying to position that so hopefully you guys can see that. So you're going under, looping around, and going over. Yes, the bead tubes are definitely long enough to make a bracelet. I would say you would have enough bead tubes, the beads to make a bracelet and the earrings. That's one nice thing about loom work. It actually doesn't take that many beads, especially if you're using multiple colors. It really stretches. Can you make anything else? Focal pieces? Yeah, you could definitely, Jacqueline, you could do focal pieces. You can make this into a brooch. You could do pendants. Like this could be a pendant too. Or you could have this on two sides of a necklace. You could do pieces like this, have it on two sides of a necklace with like some chains hanging down or crystals. Lots of different things you can do with this. So now I'm going to keep following my pattern and just adding more beads. And it really does get easier the more you do it, and it gets quicker, especially if you're doing like a chevron pattern, because you'll start to see the pattern, and at some point you'll just drop your graph paper and not even need it anymore. It's just at the beginning. Okay, so we got our next set of beads on there. And we're just going to go under. Okay, so, and you can already see that chevron pattern forming. Can you do a ring fold? Oh, a ring when folded over. Oh, Robin, that sounds really cool. I would love to see a loom ring. I have never done that. I know some people do belts. I know some people do like bands around hats. I know people who go to a lot of conventions will do like convention straps, like lanyards. I've seen that done. What else have I seen? Accents on bags. I've seen a lot of accents on handbags. Okay. There we go. And you see how that's really starting to form. Yeah, I'm going to kind of watch our timing here and make sure we can get to everything. So I'll see how long I make this, if I make the full earring, but you're hopefully being able to see how this is building. So I'll put 2 on there, and then I need 1, 2. And these beads are really easy to work with. The Tohos, they're very, how should I put this? They're very easy to go through. Their holes are very clean and neat, and they're a pretty uniform size. Every once in a while you'll get a bead that's just not quite right, and you'll skip over that one. But you want to have beads that sit nicely together, and these ones do really sit nicely together. Ooh, Robin, you made a ring. You're going to post it. Okay, I want to see that. Thank you. Yes, you guys, we want to see what you're making. So please post pictures for us, send us pictures. I know our Art Beads team can maybe on the back end here provide a link or more information where you can post pictures. We have Serious Art Beaters, which is a Facebook group, which you guys can post to. So there's a lot of good stuff, and we want to see your designs because this is what's so fun is we're all learning from each other. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that Art Beads team with the Facebook group, Serious Art Beaters. Yes. Okay, so you see that contrast that we're getting? That white is super important. So what's nice is if you have some dark beads, if you put a white or a light cream with it, it's going to really pop your design. So I love that there's that white in there because that really stands out. And then Veronica, seems time consuming. Is it faster than hand sewing? Faster than hand sewing, like hand sewing the beads onto it, like stitching the beads. Because I've done that. It is once you get into it, and if you're not talking through it like I'm talking through it, because it does get faster as you start to do this more. And I think it's faster than bead weaving too. I think it is, for me at least, it's faster than embroidery or weaving. Once you really kind of get into a good rhythm, and if it's something you start to do a lot of, you could put together a loom bracelet pretty quickly. Okay, and I'm just repeating the same pattern. Nothing is changing in what I'm doing, except for I got a little knot on my thread right there. So I'm just going to pull it out, take my needle, and kind of try to work that out before it gets in there too far. But this is it for when you're doing loom work. This is the entire, technique. Just kind of like when we did our Kumihimo project here a couple weeks ago. Once you kind of get the foundation down, you just keep repeating that same technique over and over again. Okay, I'm going to do a few more rows because I do want to show you how to take this off and turn it into a necklace and tie everything off, because that's important too, of course. So if you ever need to, you can always refer back to your pattern. We just did this row right here. So we're going to drop down and we'll do this one right here, which is that purpley raspberry color. I don't know if it's truly raspberry. I just want to, for some reason, keep calling it raspberry, but it's kind of like a purple. And then we will do 2 of these. Okay. And Vicky is asking that she's never used my loom, but have made and sold peyote seed bead bracelets. Oh yes, we would love to see those photos. Absolutely. And then Jacqueline, the graph paper's free. So if you go to, here's what it looks like blank. If you go to that shopping bag, there is going to be a link there that will take you to the page on the Art Beads website where all the graph paper is. There's peyote graph paper, there's brick stitch, there's loom. There's actually loom for round beads and cylindric beads. So if you're doing like delicas, and it's all free. You just click on them to download. And do we have a kit? We don't have a kit for this one in particular, although the beads themselves are pretty much like a little kit because these 4 are sold together. And there's other ones, they're called designer palettes. So these are basically like a little seed bead kit. But the other pieces, as of right now, we don't have a kit, but kits are coming, guys. Kits are coming. They are definitely something that is being worked on. So stay tuned for that. Okay, and then a couple more. I'm going to do one more row, I think. and then one or two, because I want to make sure that there's enough to properly tie this off so you can see how to do that. So I just want to keep going here. I knew this would be a little bit of a longer project, especially with me talking. Ooh, loomed rings are in Deborah's future. Yes. Yes, yes. I can't wait to see Robin's picture because I want to see a loomed ring. Okay, guys, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start to wrap up the actual loom work because I think that we've done enough where we can see the pattern here and see how you would actually do it. And I want to show you other techniques here on terms of like how you actually tie it off, because I don't want to take too much time before I show new stuff besides just how to do the loom. Okay, so let's pretend that this was as long as our other earring. Okay, so let's look at the finished piece. So you see how that's building. So what kind of thread and needle? So I am using 1G thread, and I am just using my regular beading needle. It's a size 11, but you can use a loom needle. And if you're doing something wider than this is only 20 millimeters across. So I felt like I had a little bit more control, especially with this little loom, the baby jewel loom, that I could just pick it up and work with my size 11 needle, which I'm very comfortable with. But you can also use a loom needle, absolutely. And if you are doing a wider piece, I would recommend the loom needle. So here we go. And then what we're gonna do is we are gonna start to tie this off. So you need to tie off two different things. You need to tie off your weft threads, which are the ones we've been working with, and your warp threads. So two separate things. So I'm going to take some of this thread and cut it because I know we're not going to use that much because we're going to go on to the finishing techniques. Let me find my scissors again. They are somewhere. They have disappeared on me. There they are. Okay. So when you are tying this off, what you are going to do is you're going to take your needle and thread and you're going to jump up a row. So you see how it's exiting that last row? Now you're going to go through the row above it, like so. And you are going to pull through. And then I like to even go one more row. So I'm going to go up to the next row. And remember, these beads are already anchored, so it's much easier to go through. So I went through the next row. Okay, so what that's doing is it is reinforcing your loom work. It is also getting you a little bit of like a nice securing object, kind of securing it a little bit more by working up through it. Now we're going to tie a knot. So I'm going to go up to the next row, and then I'm going to come out mid-row. So if you see where that needle is exiting, I'm going to come out mid-row, and I'm going to slip under a thread that's right there. So I'm just slipping my needle under a thread. Going to create a little loop. We're going to go through that little loop and pull. Now I'm going to go through the next bead. Actually, I'll go through the next couple beads. And I'm going to do that again. Now, I'm not able to see my knots with the black thread, which is nice. And I think if you were doing white thread, you wouldn't be able to see them either. You can even tie, if you've got enough space there, and you can tie a second knot. So usually you don't end up seeing your knots. And then you pull them and they just kind of tuck away. So this is what I did. I did 2 knots in there. Okay, when you come back through the row, what do you do if one of the beads is missed? Oh, like you didn't go through the bead? Is that what you're like? Because there can be a dropped bead, and there is a way of fixing that. there's a way of fixing a dropped bead. If the bead actually falls out like midway, sometimes that happens. You can actually, in the finishing techniques, add that bead back in. But if you didn't go through a bead in this part where you're going back through it, you can carefully just like take the needle off of your thread and tug at the side. If you're really looking close, you'll see little bridges. You can tug at the little bridge, pull that thread out, and then just go back through it again with the needle. If you dropped a bead, which is where it falls out midway, like you thought you caught it in the original looming and it didn't, when you're doing this part here, you can actually kind of stitch that bead back into place. Okay, so I've done 2 knots, and now I'm, excuse me, I'm just gonna trim my thread. And I didn't trim it at the end. I trimmed it like 1 bead before the end. You could do it several beads, but I kind of like that I don't have a little piece of thread just sticking out on my end because I like the nice smooth ends. Okay, so one side is secure, and now we're going to do the other side the exact same way. Okay, so this was our original row that we started with. So we're just going to go through the next row. And through the next row. And I might only, because this was a shorter piece, I'm only going to go through to halfway to here and tie a knot because I know that I tied my knots in the following row for the other thread. You won't have that problem because you'll do a full piece. So you'll have a large gap of beadwork between your knotting areas. I just have a shorter area because I stopped so that we could show the techniques. Okay. Okay, 1 more knot, and then I'm going to cut this off the loom, which is always, to me, terrifying for some reason. Like, I know it'll be okay, but it always feels really scary. I'm going to tie a second knot in there. All right. And then I'm just going to go through a couple more beads right here. And again, I don't want to go through that last bead. I want to exit one before the last bead or a couple before the last bead for when I trim my tail. Okay. Now I'm going to trim my tail. Okay, so we're going to pretend that this is nice and long. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut it off our loom. So I like to cut back here so I have as long of threads as possible. So I'm just going to hold it here and snip. And then you see how it comes off. Okay, and you want these snipped too. All right, that is now, I'll sort those little beads later. So you've got your loom piece. Now you need to tie it off. So I'm going to show you how to secure your ends with a knotting method. Now there are ways of actually rethreading this thread and tying it in. That's a different method. And the one I want to do is the knotting one because it works really well with this end cap. So I have a plastic bag I'm going to be using here. I'm going to lay it down on it. And now what I'm going to do is some knots. So I'm going to, this always feels like a hairdresser, but I'm going to separate out my strands. So I'm going to pull these guys off to the side, and now I've got 2 strands, and I'm going to knot them together. So I'm just going to take them and knot them. So I just made a little knot, and now I'm going to make another one because I want it to be secure. That was definitely not a secure knot. So what you want to do is you're going to go back, and this one I'm going to go through it twice. 1, 2, made my little loop, and knot it and pull it down. And now I've got those 2 knotted. And this is the finishing to me is not as fun as the actual loom work. I will say that. But it has to be done if you want to have a finished piece and you want to do it using this one. So now those two are knotted. Let's see if I can put this a little bit more center screen. And so I'm going to kind of secure those guys. That's holding them down. Grab something else to separate out my next two. Pull those guys aside. And then we're going to do two more. And you can add a third knot if you want. You can keep knotting these guys. Okay, and then I'm going to anchor those ones off to the side because they're done. Pull two more. Oh, thank you guys for the hearts. It's always good to know that this is something that you guys are interested in and is helpful, because that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to plan out things that we think are, of interest and something you guys want to learn. So if you have any suggestions for future shows, let us know. That has been so helpful already. We try to take your suggestions and we try to see if we can make them work. Speaking of which, Becky Doll has a show coming up on Tuesday. That's a very special show. So if you guys remember the designer blends that we've been making, and they're this really cool like stock that's just been in a warehouse for years. It's so cool. It's all like dusty and covered. These boxes are dusty, and Sarah Doll and not Sarah Doll, Becky Doll and Sarah Lovecraft and I, we got to go dig through these boxes and put together these curated collections that we call designer blends of this really cool old like hidden stock. Well, you guys had asked if we ever sell it by the strand. So instead of the blends, just the strands, individual strands. And so what we did was we went through that stock again, that really cool old stock, that vintagey stuff, and we are going to sell some individual strands. And Becky is having a special show coming up on Tuesday, sharing and having for sale those strands. So check that out. If that's of interest to you, to get like really unique, cool beads that just are something you just aren't going to find anywhere else, she's going to have a show just with those strands. So that was pretty exciting, but that was a suggestion. You guys shared that with us, and that was awesome. So we knew that was something you guys wanted. All right. Oh, thank you, Leanne. I love that. Thank you. You guys are really great. I appreciate it. And again, thank you guys for last week. You were all so gracious as I was struggling at my mom's with her internet issues. My mom was needing to move, and so I flew up to Seattle, but her internet was not great, and there was a windstorm happening and snow. So you guys were all so great. So thank you. I love all of you guys too. It's fun to be able to come here every Wednesday. Okay, we have all of our strands knotted, and it looks like a big octopus now. So it looks like all these tentacles. So you would do that on both sides. I'm going to see if I can get away with just doing it on one side, because it's going to be the exact same technique. So you would do it on both sides. So once you have all your knots done, you are going to grab your tape. And you've already got this on a plastic bag. Okay, so you're going to pull these down. So I'm going to tape up the first ones because I'm going to pretend that I already knotted all of this one. Okay, so that's taped down. Okay, going to grab some more tape. And I'm going to pull these so that they're all laying straight for me and they're not wiggling everywhere. And I'm going to put some tape on them on my plastic bag. Okay, so I can actually pick this up now so you guys can kind of see what we have going a little bit better. I know there's some glare there, but we got all those knots. It's all taped down. Now we're going to grab our glue, and I'm just going to use this here as my gluing mat, so it's going to go in the trash anyways. And we're going to put a little dab of E6000 glue on all of these. So just put that down, and we're just going to grab some glue on the end of our toothpick or our spare piece of wire that we didn't throw away because we knew we'd use it for something. And we're just going to touch on those knots. And we're going to kind of push the glue into the knots. And this is why it's important that you have that plastic bag, because you don't want to get this glue on your work surface. You also, it dries pretty fast, so you want to make sure it's wet. You also are going to want to make sure that it doesn't stick fully to your work surface. So the plastic bag helps you lift it up and off of it when you need to. Okay, so we're just putting glue on those knots for a little extra security. Now, what you would normally do, you would let that dry. So I would say it doesn't have to be to like a full cure, like a full dry. I would let that dry for at least a half hour before you do anything with it. So I'm not going to do that because that's a lot of time to sit here. And I mean, we can keep chatting, but I know you probably want to get on with your day and do stuff too. So I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes while I show you how to prep your end cap, and then I'll show you how to put this into your end cap. So there's a little jump ring right here. And Pat, I see your question. Let me answer that real quick. Any reason why E6000 versus GS Hypo Cement? You know what? Both would work. I've tended to use E6000 for this in the past. The only hesitation I have with the GS Hypo Cement is it can get very, very liquidy as you're putting it on. So if you can just be really careful and make sure it just goes on the knots and maybe the bead that the knot is next to, but you wouldn't want the GS Hypo Cement seeping into the rest of your bead work. That would be my only caution. But yeah, GS Hypo Cement should work too. Okay, so there's a little jump ring. Now I thought these were closed jump rings, so I put a cutter in this show, but I think this looks open to me. My eyesight's looking better now. Yep. Okay, so we just separated that out, and you'll do that on both sides, and then you have this clasp set ready to go. And don't forget, you can always click on that shopping bag if you want the specific details on anything I've used during this show. There is that shopping bag right there. That'll have everything all at once. And what's neat too is these sliders come in different sizes. This is the 20 millimeter, that's the medium size. There's a smaller one and a wider one. I think there's a 26 millimeter one, and I want to say like a 13. Okay, so this is your extra. It's a great clasp. You will be able to use this for another project. And then, oh yeah, Shelley, you could definitely reuse the jump ring for something else in this project. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll put that clasp aside. So now we've got this right here. I like to prep this. If you see this little tab right here that's sticking out, so basically you're gonna slide your knots and your first row of beads into here. Now, I like to get this prepped by taking this little tab and pre-folding it down just a little bit. Like not a lot, but just enough that my plan is to slide my beads in, and then I like to push down on my table to secure this, to fold it over. And it's just easier if it's bent down a little bit. Okay, we're fingers crossed, guys, that this holds, because the glue is really not fully dry yet, and I didn't do the other side of this piece. Okay, so let me take up this side first, the one that we're pretending is knotted. Okay, and since this is my sample piece, I think I'm just going to fold that tape over. Okay, so we got that. Oh, Pat, okay, great. So yeah, if GS Hypo Cement works for you, go with it, definitely. I always say that there is more than one way to do something, and I know I'm sharing my way of how to do it, but there's so many different ways. And there's no right or wrong. And that's what's great, is we're learning from each other. And so like, it's been fun to see Sarah's shows and Becky's that like, even like how to make wrapped wire loops or simple wire loops. We all seem to do it a little different. Okay, so see how that pulled up? So now I'm going to trim my tails close to the knots. Okay, so this is what we've got now. Okay, we're going to put that little thing aside. And we are going to grab our E6000 again. And you could do this too with the GS Hypo. We just want to put ever so little into the clasp, into the, well, not, I guess it's no longer a clasp, into our slider end. And I'm just going to take a little bit here and I'm going to put it in. Just a little. I just want a little something in there to help it. Now, note, there is a little hole right here. If you look really closely, if you fill this too much with glue, it will squeeze out and it will cover your little ring. I have had that happen before. So just note that, be cautious because this is not a solid cylinder here. There is that little gap right there. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to take this row that has all those knots on it and we are going to slide it. So you're sliding it between the first row and the second row of beads. And if I close this a little too far, I just open it up again. Okay, so you're just going to wiggle it. You're going to wiggle, 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 wiggle. And you see how it's pushing it into there. So we're going to wiggle, keep wiggle, and it's in. So now it is in there. I see a little straggler of a thread coming out the side, so I'm just going to push that in there. Now I'm going to close this topper. So now I'm going to try to close it a little bit with my pliers, so it's a little further at an angle. And now I'm going to flip it over and push it. I'm going to actually, here you guys can see my work table. It's a little easier. I'm going to push it down on my work table to use the force of pushing it to actually close it. And it's secured. So that is how you finish this type of loom work for this particular design. Okay, so again, we're kind of envisioning what this would have looked like if we wanted to, spend the full time to make it from totally start to finish. You would have had the full piece, and then let me take off this dangle and I'll put it on. I'll put the earring hook on so we can pretend that this was our finished piece, because you would just do that same finishing technique on the other side. And I see a lot of people just joined us. Thank you for joining us here. You can catch the replay. All of these, if you want to see how to do the actual looming, all of these videos are archived over at artbeads.com/live. So you can catch them again. You can order the supplies and be able to make it with us. So lots of fun things. So thank you for joining us, whether you're here at artbeads.com or you're over on Facebook or YouTube. Okay, so let's pretend we finished both sides, that we did the full piece. This is what you have now. So now we're going to attach the dangle, which is this really pretty prestige crystal. And it is a dark rose color, so it's really pretty. And we've got a 5mm jump ring. And we're going to open up the jump ring. And we are going to slide it through the little hole on our pretty sparkly bead pendant here. So you see that. And then what's so nice is you've got a loop at the top and a loop at the bottom. So in this case, I wanted my chevron to be pointing down. And just slip it onto that loop. And Donna, yes, I am definitely going to repeat the show that I did at my mom's. It's all about Zola elements. And I will find a time slot for that. I'm going to guess it's going to be next week. We'll for sure find a time slot for it, because that was really rough. I know that was a hard one. All right, and we closed it up, and now we've got our dangle. And now we just need to attach our earring hook up top. And then our design will be finished. So the earring hook has a little loop at the base that you can just open up. Just kind of kick it out a little bit. And there is no front or back to this. It looks identical from both sides. So you aren't going to have to worry about that. So you just slide it onto your earring hook. Close up that earring hook and you're done. And that is how you make a pair of Loom statement earrings. So that was fun. All right. So there we go. And don't forget all those Toho color palettes, those designer palettes that are new to Art Beads, they would all work for this. I put them in the shopping bag. So this was the Cornflower Dusk, but there's some really pretty other color combinations too, if you want to just look at some other color combos for your loom work or your bead weaving. Oh, thank you guys. Okay, I'm going to flip the camera up real quick so I can say goodbye for the week. Okay. All right, yay, let's look at this, how it would look on someone so you can kind of see the scale. So it is a statement earring, but it's not huge. Like, even though that was a lot of loom work that we did, it's still a really nice size earring. And you can see how that contrast is playing out. You see how the white really pops against the dark. So that would be another tip as you're planning out your own loom patterns. Put those high contrast colors together. All right. Thank you, Vicki, Clara, Robin, Deborah, everybody. Thank you guys for joining me today here at Art Beads. It was a lot of fun. Becky Doll has a great show tomorrow lined up. Sarah Lovecraft has one on Friday, and got shows all next week too. And don't forget that special show with Becky Doll on Tuesday. That is going to be where we're going to have those special strands for sale that just have not seen the light of day for years and years and years. And I know I'm going to catch that show and do some drooling over those as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to close out your shopping carts if you did want to order anything from this show. I know some of the items are limited supply just because things tend to sell out. So we do place our reorders as quickly as we can, but if there's something you really want, definitely grab it while you can. And you can always watch the replay if you want to come back and do the loom work with me again, or have a question about how to do the knots or something like that. The replay is really great for that. All right, Robin, Kat, Jacqueline, Kim, thank you guys. I will see you next week. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Okay, take care. Bye.